The separate self you defend, polish, and promote is a magnificent fiction, convincing as a dream at noon, persuasive as a mask worn for so long that the face forgets itself. You call it I, and you feel its edges wherever there is tension, in the brow that tightens when you fear judgment, in the chest that braces for disappointment, in the throat that swallows unspoken apologies and unasked questions. Yet this I, this little custodian of your life, is a thought trying to sit on the throne of being. It is a wave announcing, I am the ocean, while trembling at every gust of wind. It is the echo that mistakes itself for the original sound. And I say to you with all the warmth of a friend and the urgency of a bell, the illusion of I is the barrier to true freedom, because the I is forever trying to control what does not need controlling, forever resisting the flow that is its very nature, forever tightening its grip on a world that slips cleanly through open hands. Notice how the I operates. It stands apart from life as a commentator, like a sports announcer describing the game and pretending to play in it. When there is joy, it arrives with a ledger. This is mine. Let us keep it. When there is sorrow, it takes up arms. This is not mine. Let us banish it. It treats experience like furniture to be arranged just so, never realizing that the room is the sky and the furniture is made of clouds. The I believes itself a captain steering a ship across a stormy sea toward the port of permanent satisfaction. But there is no port of permanence, and the sea itself is you, the brine, the wind, the swell, and the moon's pull. What you seek to reach, you already are, if only you stop rearranging the horizon. Consider the moment you wake from a dream. In the dream, you are a character, complete with motives, fears, and plans. Then morning opens like a curtain, and the doctor himself dissolves. In exactly the same way, the I that narrates your waking life is a character conjured by thought. It's a helpful tool, like a name tag at a gathering, but it is not the one wearing the tag. Many live so fastened to the name tag that the fabric of being is never felt against the skin. If you listen closely, the I speaks in the grammar of separation. It says, I am inside this body, looking out. It says, there is the world, and here am I, a user of the world. But this is as odd as a whirlpool claiming independence from the river. The whirlpool has a shape, yes, a definite pattern, a recognizably you-ish movement, but its substance is the river through and through. You are a pattern in reality's water, not a marble paperweight sitting in a glass case. The pattern is unique, intimate, precious, but not separate. When the pattern relaxes, the river is felt directly, not as something to hold or fear, but as the very essence of your aliveness. Now, the I resists this. It fears that if it loosens, everything will collapse into chaos. Yet see how much chaos the I manufactures by trying to hold everything together. It's like tying the wind into knots, exhausting and absurd. A great comedy of our time is the person who cannot sit in silence for 5 minutes without feeling the itch to invent a new problem to solve. The mind is an excellent servant, but a disastrous monarch. And the servant became king when we began to confuse the map with the territory, the concept me with the direct experience of being. Let me offer you a small experiment, one that requires no incense, no doctrine, no borrowed convictions. Sit wherever you are and allow your attention to rest on the simple feeling of being. Not being something in particular, not being clever, responsible, spiritual, or wounded, just being. Before any label, is there not a luminous sense of presence, an aliveness that is prior to the story of you? Let thoughts come and go as leaves in a current. Let the I announce itself and pass like a headline. You need not read twice. The more you notice this open field of presence, the more you recognize that every event, sight, sound, thought, emotion, is a modulation in that field, the way a melody is a modulation of silence. Silence does not resist the melody. It gives it room. Presence does not resist experience. It is its very space. But the I bargains. If I let go, who will protect me? Who will achieve? Who will love? As if love were an achievement. as if life were an assault course, as if the universe, which has been breathing you since before you had a name, could not be trusted to continue without your constant supervisory commentary. You fear becoming nothing, but you mistake nothingness for emptiness. When the separate I loosens, what remains is not a void, but a vast intimacy, the way the air and the lungs are not two, the way dancer and dance are one movement. Freedom is not the absence of form. It is the absence of compulsion. And compulsion is the I insisting that experience be other than it is. The paradox is delicious. The moment you stop trying to be someone, you discover the ease of being at all. The moment you cease resisting the stream, you find that swimming was always a sport invented by the mind to prove its independence from water. Relax the swimmer, and you see, you were water, exploring the marvel of movement. This is not nihilism. It is the end of the unnecessary struggle to become real in a reality that already includes you completely. When the wave remembers its ocean, it does not disappear. It dances with less fear of the wind. So the invitation is simple and radical. Learn to recognize the I as a useful character, a mask for certain scenes, and stop mistaking the mask for the face. Don't tear it off in fury. There is no need for violence against a fiction. Smile with it, play with it, and when the play is over, let it rest in the dress. Sing Room of Thought. In that gentle surrender, something extraordinary and ordinary reveals itself. The world is not outside you, nor are you inside the world. You and the world are a single happening, one taste, one texture, appearing as many for the joy of it. Let us wander a little further into this theatre where the I has headlined every show. Picture a marionette who suddenly suspects the strings are not a limitation, but the very means by which the dance occurs. The marionette thinks, if only these strings were cut, I would be free. It imagines a freedom of isolated movement, a kind of austere, heroic independence. But cut the strings, and the marionette collapses into a heap of carved wood. The strings were not chains, they were relationships, connections, without which the dance evaporates. Likewise, what you call self is a choreography of relationships, sunlight and food, memory and language, gravity and affection. It is not a prison, it is a pattern. To discover freedom is not to sever the strings, it is to realize you are never merely the puppet. You are always the dance of strings, plus air, plus music, plus hands, plus the grand, unnameable presence that includes it all. We often imagine freedom as the power to have things our way. If that were true, you would be free only to the extent that the universe cooperates with your preferences, which is to say, you would spend a lifetime negotiating with weather patterns, stomach acids, the moods of strangers, and the swing of economies. That is not freedom. It is a subtle slavery to circumstance. True freedom is the ease of moving with circumstance because you are not standing apart from it. When a dancer moves with the rhythm, we do not call it submission. We call it grace. Grace is not defeat. It is alignment. Now let me bring this out of poetry and into your living room. You have a conversation with someone you love and they criticize you. The I flares at once, armored and eloquent. It drafts rebuttals, searches old archives for grievances to counterbalance the present. Accusation. It cannot bear the possibility that this moment is unfolding in a way that does not flatter its image. Notice the tightness in the jaw, the heat in the chest, the surge of I-ness defending a badge, and consider, quietly, daringly, what happens if you do nothing for a breath. If you let the heat be heat, the tightness be tightness, the story be story. In the vastness that watches, space appears, hearing returns. Compassion sneaks in through cracks the eye cannot seal. You might still respond with clarity, even with firmness, but the defense of the badge softens, and with it the war of two masks. This is not passivity. It is intelligence free of panic. Think of your plans. The I is a great planner. It builds a future like a cathedral, stone upon stone, convinced that heaven will finally descend when the stained glass is complete. Plans are lovely, but notice the superstition that creeps in. If I do not worry, I will be unprepared. If I don't hold it all together, it will fall apart. Yet when has worry truly improved your preparation? Worry is rehearsal for pain. You can prepare without rehearsing suffering. In the absence of the anxious I, planning becomes play, responsive, flexible, more accurate for not being clouded by fear. Then when the cathedral inevitably turns out different from the drawing because weather, because time, because other people, you are not shattered. You adjust with the grace of a tree in wind, because you are not a rigid structure, but a living process. Here is a practical door you can open at any time. Feel the body fully, without commentary, for a few breaths. Not to fix it, simply to notice. The I is a chronic commentator. It edits experience as quickly as it arrives. By returning to sensation, weight, temperature, movement, you interrupt the editor's monopoly. The body is always now. The I is largely past and future. In this size, ample shift to embodied presence, decisions clarify without the old courtroom drama. You begin to act from the situation rather than from a scripted defense. Another doorway. Allow every thought to complete itself without your interference, the way you would allow a bird to land and depart from a garden wall. Don't pluck the bird, don't trap it, don't argue with its beak. Thought comes, thought goes. In this quiet hospitality, you realize that you are the garden, not the visitor. The I is simply one of the birds, loud and charming, but still just a visitor. You do not need to evict it. You also do not need to hire it as a permanent caretaker. Consider also your relationship to time. The I lives primarily in what was and what might be. It treats the present like a narrow corridor connecting important rooms called memory and expectation. But the present is not a corridor. It is the house itself. The past is a pattern of present memories. The future is a pattern of present imaginings. Where else could you meet your life but here? When you sit down to a meal, if you are thinking of the next bite, you miss the one in your mouth. When you hug a friend while rehearsing the next sentence, you are holding a ghost. Presence is the only place anything real ever happens, and it is only the I that wants to live anywhere else. You may ask, quietly from the heart, how this understanding affects work, ambition, doing. It does not neuter them, it ennobles them. What you do becomes an expression of being rather than a construction of identity. You no longer build a monument to me, you participate in the living architecture of now. Ironically, this produces work of greater beauty and competence because it flows from intimacy with reality rather than a frantic attempt to manipulate perceptions. A musician who vanishes into the music plays more truly than the musician taking a selfie, while soloing. So the practical insight is not a secret technique. It is a posture. Loosen the fist. Meet each moment with a softness that is not weakness, but openness. Act, certainly. Speak, decide, create, repair. But notice whether the action arises from compulsion or from clarity. Compulsion is the I trying to survive in a world that never attacked it. Clarity is the river turning because the river turns. When you move like that, your life starts to feel less like a problem to solve and more like a poem to live. Let us look more tenderly at the fear that keeps the I so busy. The fear is that without a solid identity, you will be erased, ignored, or dissolved into anonymity. Yet what is erased when a mask is set down? Only the strain of keeping it in place. The face behind it can breathe again. When you relax identification with the I, the world does not disappear. Colors sharpen, sounds deepen, textures become acute. You do not vanish. You reappear as what you always were, an openness in which all of this blooms. Think of a mirror. The mirror does not cling to reflections, nor does it refuse them. It is not improved by beautiful faces or diminished by ugly ones. It does not store yesterday's image, nor does it anticipate tomorrow's. Its perfection is its emptiness, an emptiness that allows everything. Your true nature resembles this, a lucid capacity that welcomes the entire parade of experience without becoming entangled in any single float. The I wants the parade to honor only its favorite bands, but life is the whole procession, including the off-key horn and the unexpected rain. Freedom is the mirror realizing it is not the reflection, and therefore can love them all. When you see through the I, empathy flowers naturally. Because the wall of separateness thins, The suffering of another is not a foreign headline. It has a familiar taste. This does not mean drowning in others' pain. It means the heart responds as hand to hand without needing a theory. The eye often uses pity to reinforce itself. Look how compassionate but compassion without the eye is quieter and more effective. It is the simple recognition of kinship which guides action without the need for applause. As you move like this, the world ceases to be a stage of rivals and becomes a field of intimate events. Personal growth, so-called, begins to look less like climbing a staircase to a superior self and more like melting the frost that obscures the window. You do not need to become a better eye. You need to stop freezing the glass. Then the view, already there, appears. Growth in this sense is thaw, and thaw is not an accomplishment. It is a warming. It occurs when the artificial chill of self-importance relaxes, when the sun of attention shines without judgment, when you let yourself be precisely as you are for a moment without bargaining for improvement. From that warmth, change happens in the most organic manner, like the way a bud becomes a flower without a seminar. And what of meaning? The eye hunts for it like a prospector searching riverbeds for gold. It wants a statement to hang in the hallway, a banner to march under, something to announce to the world. But meaning is not an object you can possess. It is a quality of participation. When you taste tea without leaning into the next sip, there is meaning. When you give your listening to a child and do not hurry it with your agenda, there is meaning. When you sit by a window and feel the rain's tone in your bones, there is meaning. The river does not ask for a certificate of purpose. It flows, and in its flowing lies its beauty. You, too, are most meaningful when you are most yourself, uncontrived, present, responsive. This transformation is not an event, but a relaxation repeated. Again and again the eye will tighten, as is its habit, and again you will notice and soften. Over time the habit loosens, the gaps between contractions widen, the music of being becomes audible between the beats of self-concern. And then even when the eye performs its familiar operas, you watch with affection rather than fear. You can laugh at the old acrobat and invite it to tea. This friendliness toward the very mechanism that once tormented you is itself a sign of freedom. The war ends not in victory, but in intimacy. In the midst of all this, do not imagine that you must renounce your uniqueness. The ocean forgets no wave. Your particular fragrance of being, your humor, your gestures, your ways of seeing, is not a mistake. What falls away is not the fragrance, but the airless bottle that tried to trap it. When the bottle breaks, the scent can travel. Others may catch it and smile. You become more distinctly yourself, precisely because you are less obsessed with maintaining yourself. So the path is not up a ladder, but back to the ground. It is the shortest possible distance, from the idea of you to the feeling of being. From holding your life like a project to wearing it like a skin. From controlling to participating. From guarding to opening. And yes, you will still make plans, sign contracts, repair fences, and cook dinners. But you will do so as a movement within the symphony, not as the anxious conductor trying to keep the orchestra from rebellion. The music directs itself when you listen. Bring this now to the simplest gestures. When you wake, notice the very first instant before the eye assembles. There is a soft, lucid space, unguarded, unclaimed. Linger there for one breath, not to catch it like a butterfly, but to feel that you are the sky in which the day will unfold. When a difficult email arrives, feel your feet. The ground exists. The chair is steady. Let the first surge pass like a wave completing itself. You need not ride every ripple to shore. When you speak, let the words roll from the body's truth instead of the mind's campaign. When you listen, be the mirror. Let the reflection come and go without adding your makeup to their face. Cultivate small rituals of presence. Wash your hands as if you agree. Eating water for the first time. Eat one bite as if it were a secret passed down through generations of sunlight. Walk a corridor, knowing the corridor also moves through you. Pause between tasks and sense the silent hum in which tasks appear. None of this is exotic. It is, in fact, too near to notice when the eye is loud. But as the eye softens, the world brightens with its original intimacy. You discover a freedom that is not theatrical but practical. Fewer hours spent arguing with reality, more hours spent participating in it. Less posturing, more contact, less commentary, more music. If you feel discouraged, if the eye returns with new strategies, smile. The ocean can tolerate 1,000 waves. Let the practice be forgiving. Forgiveness is simply the refusal to keep accounts against yourself. The ledger belongs to the eye. Lay it down like a heavy coat in warm weather. Again and again, return to the felt sense of being. Ask, not as a puzzle, but as a way of softening. Who am I before the next thought? Who am I when I don't rehearse a name? Rest there, not in an answer, but in the openness that holds every answer and needs none. Now let the ending return you to the beginning. The illusion of I is the barrier to true freedom. But the barrier is made of paper, and the flame to melt it is attention without grasping. Turn the lamp of awareness upon the I, not to banish it, but to see it for what it is, a momentary knot in the rope of experience, useful for climbing certain cliffs, unnecessary on the meadow. When you feel the knot tightening, place the rope back in your open hand. Let the climb become a walk, the walk become a dance, the dance become the stillness in which music finds its source. We will close not with a slogan, but with a shared stillness. Sit with me for a breath. Feel the body as a bell, the breath as the striking. Let sounds be sounds, thoughts be thoughts, feelings be weather passing over the hill of the heart. There is nothing to fix in this instant, nothing to earn, nothing to defend. Notice how, when you do not stand outside your life trying to manage it, you fall back into the embrace that has been holding you all along. The trees do not clench their leaves to keep them green. The river does not police its current. The sky does not scold its clouds. They abide in their nature, and so do you when the eye grows transparent. Carry this with you, not as a rule, but as a fragrance on your sleeve. When you forget, return. When you remember, be gentle. Let your days be the surface upon which the depth plays, and let your nights be the depth that washes the surface clean. May your speech grow from silence, and your actions be the echo of listening. May you find that what you called freedom was never far. It is the ease of being what you are before the story begins and after it ends, and while it plays its beautiful, absurd, heartbreaking music in between. Now, in the quiet that follows words, I invite you to feel the simple fact of being and to trust it. To trust that the one who seeks is the one who is found when the seeker rests. To trust that love is not something to acquire, but the gravity by which every star, every cell, every glance is held in the same sky. To trust that when the eye is seen through, life does not become less. It becomes infinitely intimate. And that is freedom, not as a prize, but as the natural taste of reality when the tongue stops biting itself.